We are now moving from Midtown West up north to Manhattanville and Columbia. Lots going on up there in the Harlem area. And so we're really excited to have our three speakers to tell us about that. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us the institution you're in.
Sure. Oren Herskowitz from Columbia University. I run the tech transfer office for Columbia and do a bunch of stuff around innovation and entrepreneurship. Work closely with a lot of our peers at John Blejo. We've worked together for years, Hanara and others. So anyway, nice to meet you all.
I'm Scott Metzner with the Janus Property Company, and we're developing the Manhattanville Factory District between Columbia University and City College on 125th Street on the west side. And thank you, Nancy, for having us and for everything you do supporting and promoting the industry.
Thank you. And Nina.
Hi, yes, I'm Nina Gray. I am the Associate Dean for the Sciences at the City University of New York Graduate Center. And I'm also Executive Director of the Advanced Science Research Center, which is located up in Harlem on the City College campus.
And all of this is not far from the Structural Biology Center, which is up there as well. So there's really a lot going on in your neighborhood. So Oren, you're the academic institution that's driving all of this. And you know, I'm reading your posts all the time, and there's always news coming out of your office. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure, I'll do that. I also want to give a lot of credit to City College up there as well. It's an amazing institution, the Advanced Science Research Center. In fact, that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'll be fairly brief in my talk. But just to set the stage, so universities like Columbia and our peers around the island are tremendous generators of intellectual capital. So at Columbia alone, and this is just, you know, it's not to say we're better than others, it just, I happen to be the one on stage. 400 inventions a year coming out of the university, about 2/3 of which are from the life sciences. Of those 400 inventions, we file something like 200 patents. There's about 100 to 120 commercial license agreements a year based on the science emerging from the university. And that leads to startups, as well as, you know, of those license agreements, a good chunk of them are startups. At Columbia alone, again, and just based on IP coming out of the research labs, that was 27 new startups last year alone. And that's not even counting the student startups. And then those startups go off to feed the incubators and the accelerators and programs like the I-Corps program that John and Christina run, or eLab or others. So it's sort of, this is the pipeline for the life science successes in New York. And so I was going to talk briefly today about the Columbia Innovation Ecosystem, but it's really what we've been calling the research spine. And the reason for this is the spine, if you think of the one train that runs up, the visible one train that runs from Columbia's Morningside campus up to the medical center, looks a little bit like the vertebra of a spine. So that's what we've been calling it. But anyway, does this do anything? Yeah, there we go. So Columbia has 3 campuses on the island of Manhattan. We have a couple of others as well across the river. But you've got the Morningside Heights campus, the Manhattanville campus, which is our new one, and the Medical Center campus uptown on 168th Street. But really, these 3 campuses sit on this research spine, the research corridor in West Harlem and Washington Heights. And so it's an incredibly dense generator of research innovation in such a small area. So you've got the Morningside campus, you've got the new Manhattanville campus, you've got the New York Structural Biology Center. I'm just going up the left side of the slide. City College and the Advanced Science Research Center. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the Factory District. We're very, very lucky to have Scott and Jerry and the team at Janus so close. Harlem Biospace, which I'll talk about in just a second, but it's a biotech incubator located just actually in one of your buildings, in one of Scott's buildings. The newly opened Alexandria Launch Labs at Columbia, so it's a new 15,000 square foot biotech incubator right across the street from the medical center that opened during the pandemic. And then of course the medical center itself, New York Presbyterian Columbia Medical Center. So it is an incredibly dense corridor that is situated on an island packed with these dense corridors. So the academic community in New York is just thriving and is generating more and more startups that all need space. It's been an incredible last 5 to 10 years. And then when you zoom out even further, you've got this corridor, the island is sitting in a research community across the institutions. And people often think about the academic institutions as competitors. but we're really not. We may compete for grants, we may compete for faculty and students, but in this area of trying to promote entrepreneurship in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, we collaborate incredibly closely and work together all the time. We're often introducing venture capitalists to each other. We share news about each other's incubators. We're just as happy if an incubator from NYU, if Glennis's incubator picks up startups from Columbia, that's fantastic, and vice versa. So it's a really tight-knit community. So just to zoom in a little bit, and then I'm going to hand it over to Scott. The Manhattanville campus, just show of hands, how many people here have seen the new campus? Oh, pretty good, about half. We should change, for the rest of you guys, you should come up for a visit. It's right at essentially where 125th Street hits Broadway, going up to about 130th Street. 17 acres, over 1 million square feet currently developed, and it'll be 6.8 million square feet when fully developed. The business school, so the left is, these are all largely Renzo Piano design buildings and master plan. So on the left side there, you'll see the 2 new business school buildings that are opening in January. So the business school is going to be moving its whole campus there in January. On the right side are the 2 buildings that have already been open for a couple of years. The Forum, which is an event space and home of Columbia World Projects. And then on the upper right side, the Zuckerman Institute and the Jerome L. Green Science Center. So it's a mind-brain behavior institute with some of Columbia's amazing neuroscientists, engineers, imaging folks. It's just an incredibly vibrant campus. There'll be 6,000 daily visits as of January when this opens, in terms of students, faculty, and staff. So it is a thriving place with lots of retail coming up. It's really interesting. If you go slightly over towards just past Amsterdam, is that right? Mm-hmm. Just past Amsterdam, you've got Harlem Biospace, run by Columbia's Sam Sia. He's a faculty member at Columbia, serial entrepreneur, the vice dean of entrepreneurship in the engineering school, and launched this great incubator space, Harlem Biospace, which is home to over 70 life science companies over the years, with 17 of them in residence right now. It's a great, great space for early stage entrepreneurs. And then uptown, the newly opened Alexandria Launch Labs at Columbia. Nobody from Alexandria could join today, but Mike Norson, who runs this, has been fantastic. It opened this year. It's already got 8 startups and 35 employees, and a very, very strong pipeline from Columbia, Cornell, Mount Sinai, Rockefeller, Sloan Kettering, and across the island. So we're really excited about the future and getting a chance to work with all of you and also with the community who surrounds us to make West Harlem, Washington Heights, a thriving place for life science entrepreneurship.
Terrific. Scott?
So, and thank you, Arn. So I think listening to all the different folks in my position on the real estate side, it's incredible to see what's been going on in the last 3, 4, 5 years. I think the things that set us apart are that we've been thinking about this and working on this in this world for a long time. And we now have buildings that are actually ready to be occupied and are occupied. In addition to Harlem Biospace, we have probably 7 or 8 other life science and medical use tenants. We have buildings that can, at different price points and different sizes of spaces, can accommodate a lot of different types of uses. Everything from 1 seat at Harlem Biospace to we're working on design and engineering with Dr. Sam Sia, a graduation space for companies that are not yet ready to have their own space, but that are too big for an incubator. And then the Series A, Series B companies who have anywhere from 3,000 to 13,000 square feet. And in terms of everything we're doing, we could accommodate a company with 500,000 square feet, 1 million square feet. And I forgot my slides to give you a sense of, whoops. Well, this probably is more appropriate given where I went with the narrative. But so we're just on the other side of Broadway, as Arn said, from Columbia. We started Amsterdam Avenue. We go from 125th up to 128th Street. And one of the other things that sets us off from some of the other projects around the city is that we've created a campus. And so there is, from 125th to 128th, there is a series of outdoor landscape spaces that cut through the grid of streets in the neighborhood. And this is a rendering, although the building is built. We're working on the landscaping right now. This is the Tasty Lab building, which is our largest building right now, 350,000 square foot purpose-built lab building right on 125th and 126th Street. And so the ability to create, some of these, words that are used all the time, a true ecosystem of different sized companies, of startup companies, of bigger companies. And in addition to life science, we're working on, we have a number of tech tenants, but we're working on innovation centers and maker centers. And in conjunction with, I think when you look around the country, the most successful life science and innovation cities, they're generally collaborating with academic and research centers. And I think one of the unique things that we've been proud to be a landmark of what we do, because we've been uptown so long, is our work not only with Columbia and City College, but also with the elected officials. And the state of New York and City of New York have been big supporters of ours and our efforts, and the state on this building gave us a $10 million grant. And so, as Oren said, when you look at the density of both our commercial tenants, our not-for-profit tenants, the academic and research going on in our neighborhood, it's really quite remarkable. And just to take you back to the main Tasty Lab building, again, this is just one of the buildings in our campus. But we're very excited about what's going on, and look forward to continuing to grow this industry and our involvement in it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, both of you talk about the campus, right? This is kind of one area in the city where you can actually create a campus like that. And that's different than what you find in the other subclusters that are kind of developing around, where it's a building that's serving as kind of a point where everybody can come in. You've got a geographic location. And that brings us to Nina, who is also very closely located to what you guys are doing. Can you tell us a little bit about your advanced research
Yeah,
center?
absolutely. If somebody could bring up my slides as well. And it's perfect for me to follow up on Oren and Scott. We're not a provider of real estate. We aren't an incubator, but there are some other really interesting ways in which academic institutions can partner with startup companies and biotech that I'd like to introduce you to through the lens of the ASRC. So we are an academic research center that's part of one of the nation's largest public university systems, CUNY. And CUNY is also one of the biggest academic drivers for socioeconomic mobility. So we take, for instance, workforce development very seriously and like to work with industry on developing those kinds of programs, which I'll get to towards the end. Next slide. Just to give you a little bit more background on what the ASRC is, we are a 200,000 square foot research center just down the street from the Jerome Green building on the Manhattanville campus, 2 blocks north of Tasty building, so we're right in the same area there. And we're home to a growing number of faculty, students, staff, but also core facility users and others who are taking advantage of our space. So we have over 1,000 users of our core facilities on an annual basis. We span 5 interconnected interdisciplinary research initiatives: nanoscience, photonics, structural biology, neuroscience, and environmental science, which are sort of represented on the bottom of the slide. And typically these fields are scattered across multiple buildings at a given school, but here we've brought them together in one so that we can have more cross-fertilization of ideas, more research collaborations, and have the ability to answer questions like, how are environmental changes impacting brain development, aging, brain health, and how can we leverage things like biologically and synthetically derived nanomaterials to both measure those changes, but also manipulate environmental and biological factors. So these are really exciting research questions. And we've been sort of recently awarded a grant from New York State. Next slide, please. To develop a center for advanced technology around one aspect of the question that I just posed, which is the sensor market. So I think we know that answering a lot of the emerging questions is going to require advances in sensors, both in terms of environmental science, but also in the biomedical and life sciences sector. So our new center, which is called, which we call affectionately the ASRC Sensor CAT, has a mission to increase New York State academic industry collaboration in order to develop sensor-based technology. And the Sensor CAT provides matching funds to startup companies based in New York. So you may not, for example, think to come to an academic institution for money, but in this case you can. We also offer professional certificate courses for students, people who may be entering these sectors. We're working to develop summer internship programs with local industry, technology showcases, entrepreneurship workshops, and other things like this. So if you have companies or clients that are in the sensor technology area, we would be a great place for people to partner with or come and talk with us about how the Sensor CAT might be able to help them advance their objectives. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier our core facilities, so I think this is one area where we can really benefit some of the local startups that are coming into the area, or even beyond the local area. We have 16 different core facilities all housed within our building, which really makes it an advantage for startups who can actually come and sort of view this as a one-stop shop for all of these resources and equipment that they might not have in-house in their building. We've also started partnering with people in the companies in the Tasty building, for example, Velastra, who maybe just has an emerging need that they can't accommodate yet, but they can come down the street and work with us and take advantage of the core facilities that we have. So either way, if you have emerging needs in these areas, we have these resources that are available not just to academics at CUNY, but also to academics at Columbia and NYU, who are our users, to nonprofits like New York Stem Cell Foundation, who also takes advantage of our vivarium, and for-profit organizations. So we're open for business, basically, for people to come and use these resources. And then next slide. Since I am part of CUNY, I think it behooves me to mention that we're also really primarily interested in education and building education and workforce development programs. At the ASRC, this has been sort of the core of master's programs and PhD programs, but recently we've really been interested in developing certificate programs that would help address the specific needs of the STEM workforce that's emerging and growing and developing in New York City. Next slide. And this really starts even at the age of kindergartners for us. We have a big public outreach arm that's trying to build STEM awareness and understanding. We bring in thousands of middle school and high school students. We work with over 100 public city teachers. And our latest program is actually developing do-it-yourself sensor technology, so we can train students to build these sensors at home and take data in their house, in their community, in their workplace, and really, I think, give them this hands-on approach to STEM that we hope will help encourage them to pursue STEM as they grow up. So, and next slide, just to give you some contact information for me at the ASRC. I just want to say thanks for inviting me to be a part of this, and also hopefully this opens your eyes to some other ways and avenues in which startups and companies that are forming in the New York City area can partner with academics. Thanks.
Thank you, Nina.
I just want to point out the amazing thing that I didn't really appreciate until I started working up there is how close all of these things are. Like to walk from ASRC, I mean, our Columbia faculty and our startups use the core facilities at ASRC as well as the core facilities at Columbia. From ASRC to Harlem Biospace and the Mink Malt Tasty buildings is an 8-minute walk,
Yeah.
something like that. From your buildings to the Manhattanville campus, again, about probably a 7 or 8-minute walk.
Or less.
Or less. Yeah. And then up the hill to the engineering school, 11-minute walk.
Yeah.
Like, it's such an easy, they're all so tightly packed, it's hard to, it's easy to forget how close they are.
Right. It's interesting because, people always point out about kind of the Cambridge-Boston nexus and how
right.
everything is packed there and you can walk around and bump into people. This is a neighborhood where you can
Yeah.
do that,
Absolutely.
right? And you're putting all the right elements in there to make it happen. And I'm just really appreciative of all of the resources you're making available to startup companies and entrepreneurs to apply the technologies that are coming out of the university. So thank you. Any questions? Well, I know I'm standing between you and lunch right now, but I hope this morning gave you an appreciation. Some of you have asked me, what is life sciences? How does this industry develop and grow? And I hope we provided some of those answers this morning. And I hope you really got a good understanding of how the academic sector, the public sector, the private sector are all integral to the success of this industry. The loss of one leg in that stool means that it won't succeed. And that's what we're all building here together, bringing the real estate and life science industries together in New York. And so enjoy your lunch, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.